So we're getting ready for our second home meet, dawn to noon. We've started in December with our first home meet. Was able to just kind of see where kids were before we sent them home for a month. So that's always nerve-wracking as a coach. But sent them home for a month, came back, got on the road to Kentucky, University of Kentucky, had a quad, kind of a duel with Indiana State, and then here we are. Went IU relays with a partial squad. Now here we are with our second home meet. And for me, this meet is really we're starting to gear up for conference championships. So before we're kind of seeing where we are, we're fine tuning, we're adding a workload, and now we're really just starting to taper a little bit and get our student athletes ready for the events that they're going to be competing in. So this will be a good time. They're at home, families are coming in, kind of get to put the spotlight on them now for the second time this season, and everyone's training well. So we're excited about our preparation.
Who in the league do you think will be the top teams besides, of course, SIU?
Good. Thank you for that vote of confidence. So we're Illinois State tends to have a large squad. You know, as I'm still trying to look at the numbers and figuring out the conference, depth is certainly something that, to be honest, right now we're struggling with. I feel that we have some top marks, but then we don't have a lot of people. And so what Illinois State has been able to do is have a lot of people in all the events. And right now that's where I think they have the advantage, as well as Indiana State. They tend to do kind of the numbers game, as we call it, as well. And so those are things that we have to look at because they tend to put a lot of bodies there. And so our focus to our team is we may be small, but we can be mighty. And so that way, if we're going to kind of combat the numbers, then we have to have top marks.
How did some teams like Wichita's on the far end when they were here, they had like 150 guys, well, yeah. But how did they get so many athletes on it? Is just where they're at, like Loyola is near Chicago, so you can get a lot of walk-ons?
I think there's a varied reason, varied ways that they do it. There's definitely some of it is location. If you want to go Division I and you're close to that area, that's just where you go. They do probably get a lot of walk-on student athletes and or academics. Sometimes you're able to kind of sell the area and certain majors or programs, and so then now you're recruiting kids to walk on, but you have the numbers to do that, as well as that being the strategy for the athletic department. And there's a lot of places that want large numbers of women to combat maybe a football team or a basketball team, or so, you know, sometimes you have a larger pool, you bring them in. Not a lot of those student athletes actually stay, and so that sometimes is something to also look at, because you get a lot of people in and they kind of cycle through. It's hard to maintain a culture that way when you kind of got new faces every other year, I'd say.
As far as events, is it harder to and recruited scholarship people? Is it harder to get good sprinters? And like we don't have seem to have a lot of trouble getting throwers.
Not at all.
That's part of reputation, I guess.
It is. I was going to say there's been a strong emphasis on throwers here, and so once you build something and people in that event area know that you're going to invest in it and do it well, they want to come. And so it starts with us going to find student athletes, and then eventually they'll come find us. And so for me, I call myself a multi-coach, and I say that because I believe that the best teams are well-rounded, and so I don't really focus on one event. We are strong in throws, and we will always be strong in throws as well as other events. And so, you know, as we bring in student athletes and let them know that's the priority, others will come.
But wouldn't you say that this year, for instance, that we've got some sprinters, but that what would be not a weakness, I don't want to say it that way, the sprinters, pole vaulters, which we have been strong in a few years back at least.
Right.
And I know that goes in cycles. What other events do you think we need to bolster in the future?
I can tell you right now, I was a long and triple jumper, and I don't have any women's long or triple jumpers. So that right there is already like glaring need.
With a program that like ours, you usually have to get somebody who can do both.
Absolutely.
Long jump and triple jump.
Absolutely. You want student athletes that can do more than one thing. That's how you create some depth. Instead of trying to get 5 long jumpers and 5 triple jumpers, you can get 5 that can do both. And now you have depth in the event, but you also don't have to necessarily carry the numbers. So we definitely have some areas that we need to bulk up, but there's strong representation in certainly our throws as well as other events. So we'll be strong there.
You have some nationally ranked throwers. What are the most competitive events you'll see this weekend, do you think?
The women's weight throw is going to be a hot one. That's certainly one that we have, Deanna Price-Lambert, I call her Price-Lambert. She'll come in and she's going to throw, as well as Ole Miss is coming down. So if anyone knows Connie and John era, they will bring some of their post-collegiates as well. And so that will be, I think, an event that's going to be a hot one. Probably some of the top marks in the world, I would say, are going to come out of that event.
Is Gwen coming down?
Gwen is coming down. Gwen and Geneva.
Okay. Is it free admission?
Free admission, yes. Free admission, 2 days meet, so we'll start Friday. The multi-women's pentathlon will go 10 a.m. on Friday. The women's weight will start 3 p.m. on Friday. So field events Friday at 3 p.m. and then we'll be all day 10 a.m. to probably about 6:30 on Saturday. Free admission, so 13 teams will be in. So an array of mostly Division I, some Division II. All over the area, really. Ole Miss will be here, of course, but we have Southern Indiana, Western Illinois, a few teams out of Arkansas, so some good representation.
You don't really have dual meets very much anymore, do you? It has to be multi just to get enough times to have meets.
There's typically, yes. I mean, you've seen some go to quads, so you may have 4 teams, but the dual meet, you get so, one, it goes so quick, it almost, I hate to say you don't get a lot done, but you got a lot of kids are doing a quick turnaround and with one other team, so it helps to have at least 2 or 3 teams.
When you said the last meet you were in was at Indiana State, right?
We went to IU.
University of Indiana.
Yes.
You only took a half squad.
Yes.
Do the other people rest in order to be ready for the MVC meet?
Correct, yes. We have some just where their training cycles are. It was a heavy week for a lot of our athletes, actually, and so, we can take them and they can compete, but we also know that they may or may not compete well. It may not be worth them trying to push through a heavy load, training load, just to get a race in where they could actually be here and train a little bit more. So.
Then your coach's job is to get everybody's cycle that it points right toward
MVC. That is correct. That is correct. Okay. That's the goal.
Besides throwing, what events, areas do you feel you have confidence in?
I've really been impressed with all of our student athletes, and I have confidence that every athlete that we're going to line up in all of our events are competitive. And so I'd hate to only point out a few and leave some out, but at the same time, we have some areas, like I said, I don't have very many women that can do the long or the triple. However, those that we line up in the high jump and the relays, the hurdles, the mid-distance, the distance, we're confident they're ready to compete.
Do you ever call back to your head coach at Ohio State and ask for advice during the season?
I think I call her more now than I did when I worked for her, and usually I call to tell her, "Oh, you don't get paid nearly enough." So it's it's definitely I think a little different when you're in the seat and you're trying to make some calls that obviously affect the entire program. And so she certainly has been, Karen Dennis has certainly been a resource.
Some days people will be calling you.
Well, ironically, I get a few calls. And first I'm like, why? What did I do? But it is nice to share information and just to bounce ideas off of people that are either have done it or going through it or want to do it, because I think that's how we all grow in the profession.
What do you expect that team
As I mentioned, right now we're really just fine-tuning for conference. So, you know, I put a lot of emphasis early on in the season on competing, on really being aggressive, getting after the things that we've been working on. And right now, I'm actually asking our student athletes to kind of put a little bit more thought into what it is they need. You know, we have some data on how they're racing, where they are in their training, but really starting to trying to figure out each individual and what they need. So some need to rest, some need to do more. Some think they don't need to run, but they do. Now they realize maybe I do need to be on the 4x4 relay coach. So I think there's a lot of fine tuning right now, a lot of communication with our coaching staff to our student athletes on what it is that they really need to be ready.